The Final Frenzy, Part 1. On December 23, 2015, Miss Li suddenly received a call from a nearby mahjong parlor. Someone was looking for her, seeking her help. A man named Zhang Weimin had come by, saying his wife, Wei Shumei, had gone missing over 10 days ago. According to information from people who knew something, she had been lured away by a man known as Dr. Yu Qiang. This Dr. Yu often played mahjong with Miss Li and her husband, so they were quite familiar with each other. That's why Shang came to her. Miss Li then took Zhang Weimin to the place where Yu Qiang rented a room to look for them. It was deep winter at the time, and there had been heavy snow. There weren't even any footprints on the snowy ground outside Yu Qiang's door, so Miss Li knew he wasn't home. Thinking at the time that Yu Qiang might have left with Wei Shumei, she told Zhang Weimin she would go inside to check the situation. Zhang Weimin jumped inside to look, then ran out saying his wife had already been murdered. Yu Qiang was 55 years old at the time and had moved there only half a year earlier. People around only knew he made a living giving massages, so everyone called him Dr. Yu. Wei Shumei's body was discovered in the coal pile at Yu Qiang's rented place. The coal pile was arranged very neatly at the time, deliberately tidied up. The body was hidden inside. If Zhang Weimin hadn't checked the situation extremely carefully, and if Wei Shumei hadn't been wearing a very eye-catching red coat, the body would never have been found. If the body hadn't been discovered then, and considering he had paid a full year's rent for that room, it's likely several months would have passed, the weather would have turned warm, and the body would have decomposed before being found. This could have delayed the investigation of the case by several months. The body was concealed very secretly, and the scene had been meticulously arranged, including washed-off blood spatter on the walls. This wasn't something an ordinary killer could accomplish. Usually, if someone commits murder for the first time, they are likely to panic, immediately grab their things, and flee, not remaining this calm. After the coroner's examination, Wei Shumei was killed by a sharp weapon like an axe striking her head fiercely. The killer's methods were extremely brutal. Meanwhile, Miss Li, who had taken Zhang Weimin to Yu Qiang's place, also provided the police with a lead. Before the incident, Miss Li had seen Yu Qiang. At the time, he was walking out with a woman. Miss Li even greeted him. Yu Qiang introduced that he had a friend visiting and was taking her out for a meal. It happened to be lunchtime. The woman beside Yu Qiang didn't say much, just smiled and agreed, seeming quite normal. That day was the day Wei Shumei left home. Before the incident, Wei Shumei worked as a server at a hotel in Maihitu City. She and her husband had been married for 18 years and had 2 children. Their marriage had always been peaceful, and Zhang Weimin couldn't understand what could have happened to make Wei Shumei suddenly leave with Yu Qiang. Before the incident, Wei Shumei called her mother, asking her to go and cover her shift at work. Wei Shumei said she had to go out to take care of something and would be back in the afternoon. At 2:30 p.m., Wei Shumei's phone was still reachable. She said she was in Huayan and would take a bus back soon. But around 4:30 p.m., the phone became unreachable. Zhang Weimin was convinced his wife wouldn't leave home without reason. She must have fallen for some scheme of Yu Qiang's. These 2 places are about 200 kilometers apart. What reason made Wei Shumei travel so far remains unknown. According to surveillance footage from the bus station, After Wei Shumei arrived, Yu Qiang personally came to pick her up. Afterwards, the two went back to Yu Qiang's rented room together and also visited the mahjong parlor, all witnessed by others. During this process, Yu Qiang and Wei Shumei's behavior appeared completely normal to outsiders. They seemed like close friends. At the crime scene, Yu Qiang's blood spatter was collected. Consequently, Yu Qiang was identified as the prime suspect in this case. Later, a Mr. Wang, who often played mahjong with Yu Qiang, also provided a clue. On the afternoon of the day of the incident, Mr. Wang had contacted Yu Qiang, asking him to come out to play cards. When Yu Qiang came out, he had bloodstains on him and a wound on his head. At the time, Yu Qiang gave a detailed story, saying two people on a motorcycle had hit him. He even appeared very angry while talking about the fight with them, showing no signs of acting. Afterwards, they went to play cards together until after 10 p.m. The police felt this Yu Qiang was truly no ordinary murderer. Someone who had just killed a person, showing absolutely no signs of abnormality, could actually appear so composed and calm. Moreover, after killing someone, Yu Qiang didn't flee immediately but stayed in the area. He even slept at the mahjong parlor he frequented for 2 nights before running away. His excuse to the mahjong parlor owner was that the calm, heated brick bed in his rented room had been torn down by the landlord for rebuilding, so he couldn't stay there. He didn't leave until the 15th, and when he left, he even borrowed 500 yuan from the mahjong parlor owner. The mahjong parlor owner also said Yu Qiang behaved completely normally, just like usual. He played mahjong at her place for 2 days and even proactively helped mop the floor. Yu Qiang's landlord stated this person moved in to rent the room in September 2015. Yu Qiang introduced himself as knowing massage therapy, said he was from out of town, and paid 900 yuan in rent up front for a year. The landlord, of course, welcomed such a straightforward tenant. Since he had lived there for some time, others had also asked about his family situation. After investigation, the police discovered that Yu Qiang's story to outsiders wasn't consistent either. Sometimes he said his wife had died and his child worked elsewhere, so he came out alone to work and earn money. Other times he said his wife and child were in Jilin, and he came out alone to work and earn money. Furthermore, this man never revealed his true personal information. Occasionally, when he mentioned something about himself, it was very vague. The Final Frenzy, Part 2, people around him all said that Yu Qiang was usually a man of few words. Especially when it came to his family affairs, he rarely mentioned anything about them. As for his background, he only stated that he was from Liaoyuan City, Jilin Province. However, the police checked the household registration records and found no information matching his details. Using a fake identity and being ruthless, he was highly likely a fugitive on the run. Subsequently, through DNA comparison, the police linked him to a burglary and murder case that occurred in 2006. The criminal's real name was Weng Qingyu. From a young age, Weng Qingyu was a smooth talker with a heart full of malicious schemes. He first targeted people around him in his hometown relatives, friends. Everyone had been deceived by him. Even after he left his hometown for many years, these people still remembered him vividly. Back in the 1990s, the economic conditions of ordinary families were not very good. Yet Weng Qingyu made a living by cheating some rice from this family and some money from that one. Once he had deceived everyone in the town and his true colors were known to all. He could no longer stay and had to flee to other places. At that time, he was already married and had a child. My goodness. How could someone with such a notorious reputation get married and have kids? Fearing that creditors would trouble his wife and child after he fled, he got a divorce. In the early 2000s, to survive, Weng Qingyu briefly worked at a tofu shop. But how could someone like him work diligently? It didn't take long for trouble to arise. After working for 2 months, he tried to ask his boss for an advance on his wages, but the boss refused. Over such a trivial matter, Weng Qingyu picked up an axe and severely injured the boss. At that time, the boss was critically wounded, and Weng Qingyu thought he had definitely killed him. He locked all the doors and windows and fled in a hurry. Fortunately, the boss was lucky enough to wake up, struggled to escape for help, and finally managed to save his life. From that moment on, Weng Qingyu transformed from a petty thief into a ruthless murderer. While on the run, Weng Qingyu returned to Jilin. Being eloquent and extremely deceptive, he tricked another woman out of 50,000 yuan, claiming he wanted to open a gas station. In reality, he squandered all the money at karaoke bars, hotels, and other places of pleasure. At that time, he had pretended to be in a relationship with her to gain her trust before borrowing the money. But 50,000 yuan was no small sum back then, and naturally, the woman pressed him for repayment after some time. Afraid of being tracked down by the police, Weng Qingyu fled again, this time to Beijing. During this period, to make a living, he worked as a caregiver at a hospital. In October 2005, he deceived yet another woman and ended up in Shenyang once more. It wasn't until the end of 2005 that Weng Qingyu met a man in his 50s while working as a caregiver. That old man was truly unlucky. He had been hospitalized due to illness and hired Weng Qingyu as his caregiver, which was how they got to know each other. The old man was satisfied with Weng Qingyu's massage skills, so after being discharged from the hospital, he continued to invite Weng Qingyu to his home for massages. Since the Chinese New Year was approaching, the old man's children sent him a sum of cash as a gift. Coincidentally, Weng Qingyu was giving the old man a massage at his home when he found out about the money. In order to rob him, Weng Qingyu cruelly killed the elderly couple, committing another horrific crime. The total amount of cash was only 3,000 to 4,000 yuan, and together with other valuable items, it might not have even reached 10,000 yuan. To kill 2 people for such a small sum of money showed that he had absolutely no humanity left. Afterward, the police launched an extensive manhunt but failed to locate Weng Qingyu. The man was truly audacious after committing the crime. He actually returned to his hometown to see his son once. Perhaps he was afraid of being arrested soon, so he took the risk to visit his son, yet somehow managed to evade capture again. From 2006 to 2013, 7 years, the police had no clues about his whereabouts. By this time, he had assumed the fake identity of Yu Qiang to conceal himself from everyone. When renting a room under the name Yu Qiang, he rented just 1 room, and the landlord lived in the same house with him. Weng Qingyu introduced himself as a massage therapist and claimed he took jobs outside every day, so the landlord always thought he had a good business and was living well. Every day, When Qingyu would go out carrying a medicine box and riding a motorcycle, no one knew if he was really working or just putting on a show for others. His favorite pastime was playing mahjong. When talking about Weng Qingyu, the owner of the mahjong parlor spoke highly of him. It's laughable that such an evil scoundrel could be praised as a very good person, all because of his reputation for never owing money and paying up immediately when he lost. After all, the money wasn't earned through honest work, it was stolen, robbed, swindled, and cheated. No one knows the exact details of what happened between Weng Qingyu and Wei Shumei. But before the incident, others noticed that Weng Qingyu was wearing a sable coat, a gold necklace, and a gold ring, looking as if he had struck it rich. It was probably the same old trick. He must have deceived Wei Shumei out of her money through some means. Later, when Wei Shumei demanded repayment and Weng Qingyu refused, he killed her too. Shortly afterward, he went into hiding in Huayan, where the crime occurred. Only 3 months after arriving there, the murder of Wei Shumei took place. Tracking Weng Qingyu's escape route, the police found that he had not gone far over the years, moving back and forth between places like Jilin, Changchun, and Shenyang. It seemed that because he had committed so many crimes and evaded arrest for so long, his courage had grown bolder and bolder. Therefore, after the murder of Wei Shumei, the police believed he would not flee far and would continue to hide and make a living in these areas. Subsequently, the police printed a large number of reward notices and posted reward information through various social media platforms. On the 3rd day after the crime, the owner of a mobile phone shop called the police, saying that a man who looked very similar to Weng Qingyu had come to his shop. For some reason, the guy was still greedy for money after committing the murder. He went to sell a mobile phone. Surveillance footage showed that he was wearing a hat and sunglasses, deliberately concealing his appearance. However, he remained extremely calm and showed no signs of abnormality. He sold the mobile phone for just 70 yuan. Afterward, the police retrieved all the surveillance footage from the surrounding area but failed to track down Weng Qingyu's whereabouts. However, the police discovered that this location was very close to Weng Qingyu's ex-wife's home, so they launched a carpet search in the vicinity. Moreover, Weng Qingyu had massage skills and had made a living from it before, so the police continuously searched nearby hospitals. They also sent personnel to check all nearby mahjong parlors, visiting each hospital twice a day, then moving on to the mahjong parlors afterward. Despite this high-intensity search, Weng Qingyu mysteriously vanished once again. It wasn't until one day in April 2016 that news suddenly came from Weng Qingyu's hometown that a body suspected to be his had been found. Through DNA testing, it was confirmed that the deceased was indeed Weng Qingyu. Weng Qingyu's suicide was definitely not due to a sudden bout of conscience. Instead, it was because the police had tightened their search so much that they had blocked all possible escape routes and means of survival for him. Having committed so many heinous crimes, Weng Qingyu faced certain death penalty. He had no choice but to end his life, and at least he died in his hometown. With Weng Qingyu's death, all the vicious crimes he had committed finally came to an end. However, many details of the cases can never be clarified because of his death. Before he died, he even left a suicide note advising his descendants and relatives not to commit any illegal acts, which is rather ironic.